Hi, I'm Paul Arthur. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following today. Prime Minister Mark Carney announces a $25 billion sovereign wealth fund, but the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is not a fan. We learn more about the would-be assassin who had his sights set on U.S. President Trump over the weekend. It's Tim Hortons Smile Cookie Week across the country, and once again, Taber and Coaldale are duking it out for a good cause.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News.
Thanks for joining us. Today at the Canada Science and Technology Museum in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada's first National Sovereign Wealth Fund. Carney says the fund will invest in major sectors including energy, infrastructure, mining, agriculture, and technology. Ottawa plans to partner with private investors to finance large-scale projects.
This will be a Government of Canada fund, but more importantly, this will be a people's fund. It will be your fund. This will be a independent Crown corporation, reports to Parliament, arm's length, as I say, independent, full disclosure, professionally managed, and the investments that are made will be clear. The objective is to grow wealth for Canadians over the long term. Where the federal government is catalyzing, helping to make the project happen, through a tax incentive, through some other support, regulatory or other support. And at the core, there is a commercial business, a commercial project that is making a profit. It is fair, right, just, smart for Canadians to have a share directly of those profits. And that's what the fund is going to make possible.
The announcement comes just a day before the Liberals announce their spring economic update. Meanwhile, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is sounding the alarm about this new wealth fund. CTF Federal Director Franco Terrazzano says Norway also has a sovereign wealth fund, but it's very different than what Carney is proposing.
Well, Norway is the gold standard policy of sovereign wealth funds, and essentially Carney is doing the exact opposite. So Norway saves its oil revenues, then it has strict limits on how it can spend the money that's in the fund, right? It can only spend the interest. It has to be invested in projects abroad. But that is the exact opposite of what Carney is doing, right? Instead of saving money, Carney is borrowing another $25 billion. And instead of having those types of strict limits on spending, like the case in Norway, it just seems like the government is going to gamble taxpayers' money on risky corporate handouts. The government is running up a serious amount of debt, right? In the last year alone, according to the last budget, the Carney government was borrowing about $80 billion. And here's the thing that we can't stress enough. This government is broke. It's more than $1 trillion in debt, and its debt is costing Canadians big time, right? The interest charges on the debt, by the way, are costing us more than $1 billion every week. So that's a brand new hospital that is not getting built because that money is going to the bond fund managers on Bay Street to pay interest on the debt. Or think about it this way, okay? Every single dollar you pay in federal sales tax is going to pay interest on the debt. So the government is massively indebted, and the last thing that Canadian taxpayers need is this debt-fueled corporate slush fund.
A poll by the Angus Reid Institute suggests Canadians give Prime Minister Mark Carney a passing grade on international relations, but poor marks on affordability. 7 out of 10 Canadians say the government has fallen short on cost of living issues, while 67% give a failing mark on housing. A majority say the Liberals did meet expectations on defense, global reputation, and managing ties with U.S. President Donald Trump. Carney's approval rating sits at 58%, though views are split on overall performance and the country's direction. Federal investigators in the U.S. are continuing to piece together a picture of the gunman who was arrested Saturday outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington. The suspect, identified as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen, fired shots in the lobby of the Hilton Hotel where the dinner was being held. U.S. President Donald Trump and hundreds of guests were inside the ballroom. Authorities say Allen's social media is painting a picture of his motives.
The man accused of opening fire at the White House Correspondents' Association dinner over the weekend referred to himself as a friendly federal assassin in writings that he sent to family before the shooting. Investigators are treating the writings, along with a trail of social media posts and interviews with family members, as some of the clearest evidence yet of the suspect's mindset and possible motives. Authorities uncovered what had been described as numerous anti-Trump social media posts linked to the suspect, Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old tutor and amateur video game developer from California. The suspect was taken into custody at the dinner on Saturday night after attempting to charge into the ballroom, causing chaos and prompting the evacuation of President Donald Trump and senior members of his administration from the dinner. The writings by Allen made repeated references to Trump without naming him directly. They were sent to family members just minutes before shots were fired on Saturday night at the dinner at the Washington Hilton Hotel. They alluded to grievances over a range of actions by Trump's administration, such as US strikes on boats accused of smuggling drugs in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. Allen legally owned a semi-automatic pistol and a shotgun. He is believed to have travelled by train from California to Chicago and then on to Washington, where he checked himself in as a guest at the hotel where the gala dinner was held. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said on Sunday that the suspect is not being cooperative and is expected to face criminal charges on Monday.
This third assassination attempt linked to Trump in 2 years has raised concerns about balancing public access with safety. Officials say protections worked in this case, but further changes are likely as risks remain elevated. In the Middle East, two Israeli political heavyweights announced Sunday they would join forces to unseat longtime Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We get details from Joe Fetterman with the Associated Press.
Two major opposition figures, Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid, have announced that they will join forces in a bid to unseat Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bennett and Lapid are former partners who rotated the prime minister's job for a brief period in 2021 and 22. This time, the two men now say they will unite into a single party under Bennett's leadership. Israeli governments are formed through coalitions of various parties, so an alliance had been expected, but with Lapid stepping aside, Bennett has now emerged as the clear challenger to Netanyahu to be the next prime minister. At the same time, Netanyahu has suffered a new setback in his quest to get corruption charges dropped. Netanyahu last fall asked Israel's president to grant him a pardon and cancel an ongoing trial, while Israel's president Isaac Herzog says he has decided not to decide on this request for the time being. Instead, he wants to see Netanyahu seek a settlement with prosecutors. Netanyahu had hoped to end the trial ahead of new elections. Now it looks like he will be running for re-election under the cloud of this trial, while also having a strong frontrunner lined up against him.
Netanyahu recently disclosed he had a malignant tumor removed from his prostate. The announcement was vague on details, and his wider health is now likely to be an election issue. Jewish advocacy group B'nai B'rith is reporting a dramatic rise in anti-Semitic incidents in 2025. It says these types of acts are being normalized in Canada as its annual tally reaches another record high number since the group started collecting data in 1982.
From January 1st to December 31st, 2025, B'nai B'rith recorded 6,800 incidents of anti-Semitism in Canada. This total represents a 9.3% increase over 2024 and a 145.6% increase over 2022. The most prevalent forms of anti-Semitism recorded in 2025 were calling for or justifying the killing or harming of Jews, making false, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews, denying the occurrence, scope, or mechanisms of the Holocaust, using anti-Semitic symbols and images to characterize Israel, Israelis, or Zionists, and holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the State of Israel. Though the figures contained in the 2025 audit are astonishing, we cannot allow anti-Semitism to be rendered into mere statistics that we grow numb to.
This new data shows Ontario, the Prairies, Atlantic Canada, and British Columbia experienced significant increases in the number of documented incidents. In Quebec and Alberta, the total number actually declined. Last week, the Senate Standing Committee on Human Rights released a 73-page report on the rise in anti-Semitism. One of the key recommendations is the reinstatement of the Special Envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. That position was abolished in February with the announcement of a new advisory council on rights, equality, and inclusion. Back in Ottawa, Culture Minister Mark Miller is working on new online harms legislation as advocates rallied today on Parliament Hill for stronger protections. Children First Canada says the law should cover AI chatbots, video games, and social media amid rising risks to youth. CEO Sarah Austin cited cases of online grooming and harmful chatbot interactions, urging faster action, and also commented on the possibility of setting age restrictions for social media accounts.
There is a hot debate right now in Canada and strong support from Canadians around social media age restrictions. This is, I think one thing that Canadians often forget is when Australia did that, they made huge headlines, they already had an Online Safety Act in place. Canada currently has nothing on the books. And so we really need to start with the core elements of that duty of care, safety by design, an independent regulator, and to ensure the full scope of digital technology, not just social media. Kids are on gaming platforms, they're on chat forums, they're using AI chatbots. This whole scope of technology needs to be considered in the Online Safety Act, and where we're urging government to unite around what every Canadian cares about, which is the protection of our children.
The proposed legislation would impose a duty of care on platforms and stronger oversight after a previous government bill failed to pass. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is on a trade trip to Europe this week. The Premier's office says she is traveling to Sweden today for meetings with health, defense, and manufacturing officials. Over the weekend, she met with government officials and aerospace and energy leaders in Germany. She'll wrap up the trip in London before returning to Alberta at the end of the week. Here at home, the group Economic Developers of Alberta handed out its Awards of Excellence at a recent conference in Kananaskis, and Southern Alberta was well represented, including Economic Development Lethbridge. Professionals in the industry were recognized for the work they do, and among the honorees was Lethbridge's Quantum Super Hub. EDL Interim CEO Ben Young accepted the Alex Metcalf Large Community Award for Innovative Approach to Economic Development. That award recognizes projects that used a new, creative, and distinctive approach to economic development in their communities. Also, the Southern Alberta Investment and Trade Initiative won the Large Community Award for Marketing for Economic Development Outcomes. That honor was shared by Economic Development Lethbridge, South Grow Regional Initiative, Alberta Southwest Regional Economic Development, and Lethbridge County. And the town of Taber won the Small Community Award in that same category for its Celebrate Taber campaign. It is Tim Hortons Smile Cookie Campaign Week across Canada. The campaign supports local community programs in children's health care here in Southern Alberta. Officials and members of the community rolled up their sleeves and got to work grabbing cream-filled piping bags to decorate cookies with pink smiles to raise money for different local charities, with 100% of the proceeds from each cookie donated locally. In Lethbridge, the campaign is supporting Green Shirt Day and the Logan Boulay Endowment Fund within the Community Foundation of Lethbridge and Southwestern Alberta.
To be a part of it, giving back to Green Shirt Day cause, to organ donations, and to all the families back in my hometown in Humboldt, just feels really meaningful to support. I have a workout after this, and I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to shoot because my hands are sore from decorating the cookies, but we did our best job making them all look happy and excited and put all of our love into the cookies.
To keep this legacy alive has been absolutely unbelievable. I mean, we all come in and we're not experts at putting putting these smiles on. So sometimes when you pick up a cookie, it may not be perfect, but what is perfect is that you gave the donation to this wonderful cause, and so that's what it's so important.
It's one of our biggest fundraisers we do. Every year we partner up with a local group or charity, decorate all these wonderful smile cookies, and all proceeds go towards that local group or organization. I think this week they have 168 volunteers for us. I think 7 stores we're doing decorating at throughout the city, and it's a huge success. Last year was a different fundraiser that we were with. I want to say it was in the $40,000 range, so every year, of course, we're looking to improve upon that. It'd be nice to see a $50,000 or $50,000 plus dollars generated this year.
Meanwhile, the mayors of Coaldale and Taber launched their own friendly battle as the local Tim Hortons locations once again compete to see which community can sell the most cookies and raise the most money for local programs supporting mental health, youth, parenting, and seniors services.
FCSS plays a very important role in the town of Coaldale and also all of Lethbridge County and across the province. And I'm doing my part along with members of our council to make this happen, that we can be successful and not only having a friendly competition between the town of Taber, but the end goal is to raise as much money as we can for FCSS. In 2025, Coaldale was successful in beating Taber, and between the two of us, we raised over $24,000 for FCSS.
The Smile Cookie Campaign Week runs from April 27th until May 3rd. The initiative has been running in Canada for nearly 30 years. A pair of student researchers from the Exercise Science course at Lethbridge Polytechnic will be presenting their individual research findings in Switzerland this summer. With guidance from instructor Simon Shares, current student Haley Pilling and recent graduate Hannah Smith explored topics related to physical health and performed practical assessments to gather results. They will present their findings to the European College of Sports Science at a conference in Switzerland this July.
I got to look at how the menstrual cycle impacts collegiate distance runners, and so we kind of looked at their real life experiences and how those symptoms throughout the month kind of impact things both academically and performance and training. Athletes that we had in the study and that we interviewed, and all of them said that every day looks different. Your 100% on one day is going to be different than the 100% effort you can give on another day. And so just understanding that and having everyone around you, including the males in your life, understand that makes a really big difference.
Our project looked at the relationship between movement competence and executive function in kids aged 7 to 12 years old. What we wanted to do was use something called the CAMSA obstacle course, which examines running, jumping, throwing, catching, kicking. What we found in this study was a relationship between inhibitory control and the speed at which the children completed the obstacle course. And athletes see this in sports like basketball, baseball. They have to make decisions quickly. And if we can practice this both in a learning setting as well as in physical activity, I think this will help athletes improve their performance as well as students improve their cognitive function in class.
These research projects and trips are supported by a federal grant, which provides eligible post-secondary institutions with annual funding towards review processes, small-scale research, and research-related activities.
Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com. The Bank of Canada is widely expected to hold interest rates steady this Wednesday, even as there's been historic spikes in gasoline prices that have really hit consumers across the country. With the conflict in the Middle East effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz, pump prices jumped over 20% in March. That's the largest one-month increase on record. This energy shock pushed headline inflation to 2.4%, but Governor Tiff Macklem and his team are signaling a bit of a look-through kind of approach. The central bank's preferred core measures remain stable, and the Canadian economy is stuck in essentially low gear here. There is little appetite for a rate hike that could further choke off growth. However, the focus is shifting to the quarterly monetary policy report. Economists are watching for updates on the neutral rate and the long-term impact of trade uncertainty. While Canada benefits from higher resource prices as a net exporter of energy and fertilizer, the domestic squeeze for consumers is real. For now, the bank is betting that high gas prices won't trigger a broader inflationary spiral, but in a year of global upheaval, that wait-and-see policy is being tested daily. For Bridge City News, I'm Sean Haney with RealAgriculture.com.
Rogers Communications has announced that it is offering voluntary departure packages to 50% of its approximately 25,000 member workforce in one of the largest ever buyout initiatives in the telecom sector as industry revenue continues its downward trend. Rogers did not give any indication as to whether it has a specific number of departures that it is aiming for. Employees eligible for the packages include some business and corporate units, but on-air talent, Sportsnet employees, and unionized workers will not be eligible. The announcement comes after a separate move by Rogers last week to reduce capital expenditures for 2026 by some 30% compared to last year. Management leaders have noted that a challenging regulatory environment is one of the factors involved in this decision. Attracting tourists and their tourism dollars is usually looked at as a positive, but a new proposed 74-site glamping project near the booming town of Canmore, Alberta, has renewed debate among locals as to the pros and cons of increased tourism.
So this has been untouched property for the last 60 years. It is going to be Trail House is the name of the site itself, but Miners Camp was the original name because underneath the property is some of the original Canmore mines. So below us is Canmore Mine number 1, a Carry Seam, and a few other mines. And so the intention was to kind of play on the historic nature of the property and the community itself. It's right next to Kananaskis. It is easily accessible off of Highway 742. It's out of the actual heart of Canmore, so it doesn't add to the congestion in that area, and it allows people to utilize the natural features like Kananaskis, the Nordic Center, Quarry Lake, and then all the other businesses that are associated in this area, like the golf courses and any kind of hiking or biking that might happen.
There's only one way in and one way out. So in terms of evacuation plans, we're terrified, and especially after what happened in Jasper. They had an orderly evacuation, and it was very impressive. But this developer is looking at putting over 200 people into our neighborhood. 200 people who have absolutely no idea of the wildfire risks, have no idea of the evacuation procedure. We're terrified. The town of Canmore is exploding. Enough is enough. I mean, there's the gondola, Silvertip gondola that they're trying to put up. They're anticipating another 300,000 people coming to Canmore during the summer or over the course of a year. We just don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the staff. We don't have the accommodation. We don't have the roads. The sewage treatment plant is already, I think, at capacity. You can smell it on a daily basis sometimes. It's just over-tourism is an issue. And it feels like the Alberta government is not listening to anybody who lives in Canmore.
And now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 85 to 33,818. The Dow was down 62 to 49,167. The S&P 500 was up 8 to 7,173, and the Nasdaq was up 50 to 24,887. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $2.26 to $96.60 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to $2.54 US. Gold was down $27.42 to $46.8185 US an ounce, and silver was down 14 cents to $95.49 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.55 per bushel. Barley is at $6.86. Canola is at $16.52, and corn is at $7.72 per bushel. Live cattle were up $2.12 to $2.50.42. Feeder cattle were up $2.95 to $3.70.57, and lean hogs May contract was up 7 cents to $94.37. The Canadian dollar was up over the past 24 hours and sits at $73.40 US.
Recapping one of today's top stories, Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced the country's first sovereign wealth fund. He says the federal government will put $25 billion into the Canada Strong Fund, noting private investors can also put money into it. Carney suggests it would be similar to purchasing a government bond, where initial investment is protected. However, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation says with borrowing $25 billion for this, it makes no sense. CTF Federal Director Franco Terrazzano calls it Carney's corporate slush fund. Ottawa is looking to pass Bill C-22, the Lawful Access Act, which would allow governmental authorities access to your personal data. They say it's part of the efforts to fight crime, but John Carpe, president of the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, warns it will lead Canada down a path toward becoming a surveillance state. Stay tuned for that interview coming up next. And we want to take a moment to say thanks to those of you who are watching our newscast on YouTube. Not only is our full newscast available there, but we also have content you can access on demand from our regular contributors like Brian Lilly and Dave Naylor. Right now, we're on a push to break that 50,000 mark in subscriptions. So if you haven't done so already, go to YouTube and hit that subscribe button, and that will ensure you get notifications about all of our new content when it's posted. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And to find featured stories and interviews, you can visit bridgecitynews.ca.